okay, then I'll talk about something I'm usually not talking about in the satsang. Recently it happened repeatedly that in discussions people have told me, look, what's going on in the world? It's terrible, it's going down the hill. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And of course it depends how we are looking. If you watch the news, if you look what's going on politically, you can think, oh God, oh God, oh God. The rise of nationalistic feelings all over the world. Only us, not the others. The ecological situation, not knowing whether we are at the brink of mass destruction. But the thing is, we all are influencing that. There's no point in sitting here and looking at in what is happening and thinking it's terrible, terrible, and getting all depressed about it. All we are doing, we are strengthening the negativity. We are contributing that it's getting worse and worse if you are worried about that. There is also another movement going on. There is a tremendous spiritual awakening going on all over the world, especially in very young people. And each one can contribute. We have actually each one a responsibility. If we are, because we are seeing that things are not so perfect as they should be, if you are getting all depressed about it, then actually we are contributing that it is getting worse. We are contributing, sending negativity into that total field around the world. But everybody is intrinsically a divine being. Come back to that, learn to feel that. You're full of light, you're full of beauty. Instead of worrying about what's going on in the world, bring the attention back to that and radiate that. And you're contributing that things can change in the world. And everybody matters. Everybody is part of it. That doesn't mean you should never listen to news ever again. But if you hear things that are rather at the first moment depressing, then instead of letting yourself pull into that and the attention get into that dark place, make it into an inspiration that you have that much the more. Dive into your own beauty. Sink into that beautiful being that you are. And the more you are doing that, the more something very constructive and beautiful is radiating, and not only helping yourself, you are the first benefiting from it, but you're contributing that the totality is improving. Maybe humanity has to go to a point where the knife is so much at the throat that finally we start to understand that maybe it's not such a good idea to slander all our resources for armies and weapons and destroying each other and do all kinds of destructive nonsense, but use that energy and work together to harmonize the whole thing, and it can be done. But what is needed is not that we have to change the political systems, that we have to change the politicians who order after that people to do different things, but what is needed that everybody starts to contribute. And the more people are contributing, the more others are being inspired and sucked into it. So if you want to do something good for this world, not only for yourself, but for the whole rest of the world, then make yourself happy. Look at yourself and see how you are making yourself unhappy. How we are using the situations in the world as excuses to go into the usual thing and feeling depressed and think, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible. Don't let your attention get sucked into that, but bring it back to your own inner beauty and creativity and let it bubble up and let it express itself and radiate. If more people would start to really do that, then we could live in an entirely different world. You have every moment the freedom to at least attempt to bring your attention back to that sense of presence, or to completely forget about it and overlook it and be totally involved. How much you are successful in that moment may not lie in your hands, but whether you are attempting that or not, that lies in your hands. And so you can change your own story, even if the cloud of destiny there points that it's going quite into terrible things and down the hill, then if you learn not to be so completely concerned about everything and afraid of everything and identified with the me person, but learn to bring the attention back to that aspect of you that is not affected by all this, then lots of that destiny that was there hanging bound to happen needs not manifest. And as it is so for the individual, it is also for the whole global destiny. It keeps on going in its dark way and appearing, getting worse and worse and worse, because people support it. Either because they are interested that it's going down the hill, or they are afraid and being depressed by it, and in that way also feeding it that it's getting worse and worse and worse. We can individually contribute that the whole world story changes. You have that power. But it's not just a few individuals that will change the world story. I mean, a few powerful beings, they may have a tremendous influence, but humanity as a whole is a formidable thing. That whole consciousness that is there. If somehow humans could be inspired, instead of always being in their thing, to learn to keep quiet sometime. To see that they are making their own life miserable with their own mind and learn not to do that anymore and dive into that beauty of existence, then the whole atmosphere would start to clear up all by itself.
This kind of just a further point on that whole issue. Do you think there's anything that's of life itself that, for example, would somehow step in, I guess through a person or something, to help the human race if we're just going down the tubes in terms of environmentally, just all these things that look so crappy right now. Mm-hmm. Do you think that beingness itself would somehow push or to express itself to help change the course of things, or do you think it's all it could all just go down? In other words, we could do some mass extinction, kill ourselves off for who knows how long or whatever.
Ultimately, it always fits in a cosmic tapestry. And maybe there are not only pleasant things in store for us, but it's always also the possibility, the call that we as humans should somehow come to our senses. And all kinds of stuff may happen to wake us up. I'm sure it's not simply going to pass, that the whole thing is going to be completely destroyed and the whole experiment would have been meaningless. But everybody can contribute. And it's not simply that we should go now on the road and manifest, and I mean, if somebody feels like doing that, by all means, go and do that. The kids are doing that now, and I think it's great. But although ecologically it's totally in imbalance, and there is a lot of hatred, there is a lot of violence, it's not that we have to change the political systems and after that it will work. We can change the political systems. All we want to save story is just continuing. It's not simply that we should now find the scientific trick that we could put ecology again in balance. Before that imbalance that is manifesting on the material level, there is a subtle imbalance, and everybody is contributing. And actually, people who look what's going on in the world, but then what they do, they just get all worried about it and all upset, and they go, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. If we do that, we contribute to the negativity of it. We contribute that more destruction is waiting for us. What each and everyone can do is, in spite of watching the news, in spite of what's going on, learn to bring the attention back to the self, back to that part of yourself that is absolutely not affected by any of this. Not affected by what is happening global, not affected what is happening in our personal life.
Yeah, but me, I think it's normal to be affected a little bit. Here I smell burning plastic. Nobody speak about this, like, oh, it's normal. But it's normal to feeling it's horrible. If you... no, excuse me. It's normal if you are sensitive, you say, wow, what's happened? And me, I don't use plastic because I don't like smell burning plastic.
Right.
And I do something for this. So if at a moment you have no ideas, it's important to be sensitive and have a little rebellion about this. And after, okay, go inside and change, not stay on this. But excuse me, my English is so bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
This gives me emotion.
My English is also bad.
Yeah. Yes, I was very. It's my first time in India. I was very nervous yesterday. I come in this big city, always smell plastic burning.
Yeah.
I think, wow, it's so horrible for me to
Right.
accept this, to living in one world like this. But
I think what you are doing is perfect. You do in your little way what you can. Not to use plastic if you can avoid it. But what you understand, that when I say you come back to that aspect in you that is not affected by it, that doesn't mean that you make a wall around yourself and you give a damn what is out there. In contrary, it's not that you are getting insensitive when you are doing that. In contrary, you start to become aware that you are connected to everything. But still you are aware that the core of you is not affected by anything. Neither by your own misdeeds nor by whatever is happening. And from that position you are much more potential to really influence the story.
That's true.
Do you, I was just going to say, if things are out of balance, you would think, I mean, just as an engineer, you might think that evolution or this that's doing this being out of balance might have start developing a stronger force to bring it back into balance than what was there before. That if you're connected to that, or experiencing that internally, might help you become a channel to bring more of that on the subtle level, out in to influence others and stuff. Like
right. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Each and everyone can contribute. Instead of, when I say not fretting, that doesn't mean we should just close our eyes and think, it's everything is beautiful on its own level. Nope. Everybody can see how things are off balance, how it's completely nuts what we are doing to this little planet. We are using so much of the resources to build armies and destructive weapons. What madness is this? But we can, as an individual, worry about it and contribute to the negativity and invite that it's getting worse. Or you can put yourself right and bring your attention back to your own divine beauty and start to radiate. And the more people do that, the more others will be influenced and pulled in also start to do that. And if on that level the climate would harmonize, then the external is easy to harmonize itself again. So we cannot make just the systems and the politicians and everybody responsible, but each one has her or his responsibility to contribute, and it has much more effect than one would think. And in the meantime, do what you say. In our little way, if we are not in a position where we can make big changes, not unnecessarily polluting more, not unnecessarily distributing violence, not unnecessarily hurt living beings, but it's mainly also what is happening in our experience. The more you make yourself really happy, the more you are contributing that the world can become happy. It's completely wrong thinking that first I have to take care of the world and then after that I can take care of myself. It's selfish to try to bring yourself in order, but no, it's the most unselfish thing to do because what is creating all the disharmony in our own life and in the world is that selfishness, that we are identifying with an image we have created about ourselves instead of being aware what divine beauty there is. So the most unselfish thing that you can do is make order there. And then that beauty, that joyousness of existence will simply radiate, and with that you are contributing much more than people usually imagine. Are you an engineer?
I am an engineer.
So create something that is improving the world.
Good idea. I keep thinking I don't understand just being an engineer. Now, I haven't looked into this, and I don't know that I have the background to do it, but you know, a lot of this technology, people are saying there's problems with it. You know, the frequencies of the cell phones, the this, the that, the other thing. I don't understand why we couldn't look into making, you know, all these things like the frequency we're operating our cell phones at, trying to do something that was more biocompatible, that wasn't, that definitely did not have, you know, because there are certainly frequencies in nature that are going on, you know, and whatever, cosmic rays, all kinds of things that life's been used to having around. And you would think you could do things with technology, work with nature.
Of course we could. The trouble is that there's so much selfish motivation in the world, giving a damn what it is doing if it pays enough.
Yes.
And making an extra effort to create it harmoniously, it's for many people just too much asked.
But maybe,
of course we could.
Maybe this is coming closer and closer to the time where a lot of people that would matter and would be good economically for someone if they could, you know, if you knew things were like working with life and nature and the planet.
It could happen that if we have the knife really here to survive as humanity, that finally we stop beating each other's head bloody and work together.
Yeah.
But we don't have to wait as individual until that point is there. Each and everyone can every moment decide to be worried and in a worried mind, or learn to come back to that sense of being. And then from there act, from there influence.
Are you accepting the background of world is going downhill, or this whole world? What happened to divine beauty, or?
Both is happening. The negative forces are very strong, but there's also worldwide a spiritual awakening.
But that,
strong.
I mean, through books, even 20, 30, 50 years ago, other spiritual teachers, they've been saying that.
Yeah, and you can't see much.
Even Socrates here, they said the same thing. So, it's nothing new.
Right, it's nothing new, but it's still happening. That doesn't mean that awakening, something is falling down from the sky and whole humanity is transformed. But there are a lot of people who start to think a bit clearer and start to change their values, especially young people. But it's not an excuse for our for our generation not to look for that. So both is there. It's a very intense period. Actually, it's a very perfect period to very quickly go deep, because when it's so intense, pulling you simultaneously intensely to the negative as well as intensely to the positive, you have the possibility within short time go really deep. If in a period as intense as this, you take the trouble to have a good honest look at yourself, to see how I am creating disharmony, how I am creating tension in myself, and then learn to let that go instead of recreating that, then in an intense period like this can be extremely effective. That within a short time you can really go deeper, 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 because of the intensity that there is in the atmosphere. It needs an alertness greater than in a time of harmony, but if you take the trouble to muster up that alertness, then the reward is also tremendous.